What springs to mind when you think of meditation? Something sort of far away and exotic? Something that sounds pretty interesting, but so mysterious you just forget about it? Something that only the very religious or the very new age kind of person does? The history of meditation runs a broad spectrum covering many cultures and traditions. Although there is evidence in the Hindu Vedas that meditation started as a spiritual practice in India probably before 1,000 years BC, it is used today in the West not only in religious contexts, but also for secular reasons and in secular ways. There have been over 1,000 studies on meditation over the past 40 years to try and determine its legitimacy, psychological effects, and physiological benefits, if any. According to the American Academy of Neurology, various studies support that meditation can increase attention span, sharpen focus, improve memory, dull the perception of pain, reduce stress, anxiety, depression, blood pressure, and more. Cameron Mathison is joining us today from the Kadampa Meditation Center here in Los Angeles. You may recognize Cameron from his many years on All My Children and from Season 5 of Dancing with the Stars. He is currently, now among other things, a correspondent with Good Morning America. He began his meditation journey 6 years ago and now volunteers his time teaching it. Thank you for joining us, Cameron Mathison.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hang on one second while we get your mic going.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here we go. Try that again.
Okay, let's try that again.
That's good.
Hello again.
Thank you for joining us, Cameron.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, okay, so let's just dive in. Meditation. Now, for me, this has been a word I've heard my entire life. Meditate. I just meditated on this the other day, and I'll meditate on that tomorrow or whatever.
Really? Have you heard it? That's amazing, because growing up for me, it was such a foreign concept. Like, I'd hear it, and I don't really exactly know what imputation I would put on it, but up until fairly recently in my life, I didn't really fully understand, meditation. And I think, from one perspective, I'm obviously still learning about it. But that's great that you heard about it your whole life. I'm meditating on this. Go ahead, finish that thought.
I can't really say that my whole life as a child, but certainly as an adult, a young adult, and onward, it is a word I've heard. And so in the back of my mind, I've always just been like, I really should know how to do that. It just sounds so great, and it does so much, and it seems so, this key to something that I just have not been able to grasp. So. In your mind, well, first of all, you said you started about 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
You told me. So what got you going?
It's a good question, and I also love just listening to you talk about meditation. It's got like a bit of a mysterious yet intriguing aspect to it, Exactly. And I think I always sort of, once I'd heard about meditation, as an adult, I found it a little bit mysterious, but I guess. Like a lot of people in the West, I was living in New York at the time, and I think L.A. is very similar, and anywhere in America or in the world. I was a very busy guy. It's a busy world out there these days, and I had a very busy mind. However, I didn't necessarily know that my mind was so busy and agitated and constantly going and essentially. Focused largely externally, situations, people, arranging situations and things externally, and trying to figure out and basing my own happiness, my own state of mind, in quotes, based on externals, and not understanding on any level that I can kind of take matters into my own hands and look internal and start to change my mind with respect to the externals. And in doing so, just create a much more stable and lasting happiness for myself, and then obviously be more of a benefit to those around me. And so I guess essentially truthfully, I was a bit of a mess. I couldn't even sit in the back of a taxi going cross town in New York without zoning out on an iPhone or listening to music or getting on my phone or texting.
Well, it's such a modern time.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere without anybody sitting if you sit in a restaurant and somebody's waiting for their friend, their first thing they do is pull out their phone.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, if you think about distraction out there, and I think it's important to talk about what's wrong with distraction, what's wrong with keeping your mind constantly going and focused on externals, because people will be like, yeah, so what, And I think it's really important to talk about what the benefits are of being able to create a little space, a little clarity, a little peace in the mind. But yeah, essentially, this society is becoming more and more distracted. I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, look at the gas stations. There's televisions in the gas stations.
Yes.
How long are we supposed to be filling up our car full of gas that we need to be entertained?
You can't go anywhere.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
The airplanes, now taxis in New York, before I was there, I had to resort to my phone, of course, but now they have TVs there. It's just, the point is we're being bombarded by distraction in many different forms. And so for, maybe people listening, they can think, what is it? Is it my Facebook account? Is it my apps on my phone that there's an app for everything? Is it coming home and zoning out in front of the television? Is it food? Is it other distractions, other ways to escape and numb out externally, not recognizing that we, really have everything that we need to feel better and to feel calm, feel peaceful and happy from within. In many cases, people don't realize it. Maybe some people do, but they don't often turn there. So I guess at some point I realized that I needed a little help and slowing down.
Was there
my
a
mind.
moment where you're just like, I can't take it
Well,
anymore?
my wife and I,
What
like you were talking, my wife and I were always interested in meditation. And she went to this class, and she came home from this class. It happened to be a Kadampa class on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and she sat me down, and I thought, oh man, I'm in trouble. I hadn't really seen her look at me with that intensity, unless I was in a lot of trouble. And she said, "You need to come with me next week." And I was like, "Okay,
okay, honey, sure,
okay,
okay.
whatever you say." And truthfully, my first class was extremely painful in many ways and extremely beneficial in many ways. I had never really looked within. I'd never really tried to kind of jump into the swirling madness of my mind in the sense of meditation. And yet the teachings and the philosophies that I was hearing from these classes. So in our tradition, there's many different types of meditation, and by no means do I want to sound like an expert on all of them, because I'm not an expert on any of them, actually. But in our tradition, there's a lot of emphasis on training the mind, on understanding our mental habits that can lead to agitation like anger and craving and attachment and maybe miserliness or impatience or self-centeredness and things like this. So a lot of these can come from sort of mental habits. And so in our tradition, we meditate, but we also kind of talk through some philosophy to meditate on. In other words, we're not just trying to escape in general. We're trying to change the way that we think that can lead to a happier, calmer state of being. And really, in doing so, make massive, unimaginable transformations in basically who we are and how we see the world.
Now, would you say that this philosophy, meditation, it seems that most of it that I hear is very religious oriented, very Buddhist, or, whatever. So this philosophy that you talk about, would you say that is primarily a religious type of ideology?
I think, in our tradition, we definitely study Buddhist philosophies. Now, there are many, many, many non-Buddhists that come to this that find profound benefit in trying to train in love, and trying to train in compassion, and trying to see somebody instead of as an angry person, as somebody that's suffering. And in doing so, develop more patience and acceptance and relate to them in that way. Trying to see trying to develop more patience so you can be a better father, a better husband. Trying to develop more humility so one is less self-centered and maybe more other-centric, And so, yes, it's based on in our tradition, again, Buddhist teachings, but essentially many, many, many of the teachings are very universal virtues and really ultimately just lead to happiness regardless of what your background is. And there's many different religious beliefs and non-religious people completely that come to these classes and that can practice other types of meditation as well, for sure. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And so you mentioned earlier, and I have read that there are many different types of meditation. So what kind do you practice and teach, and what is it, Kadampa?
Yeah, it's like I say, it's of a Buddhist philosophy. It's a Buddhist meditation, Tibetan-based, where largely we're training the mind. We're trying to understand our sort of mental habits and processes that lead to suffering, that lead to an agitated state of mind. Our habits that we can do that don't aren't really helping us out, and we're trying to look at them, examine them, see what we can work on, and learn to think in different ways that lead to happiness. And by meditating on them, we're kind of, there's one thing to kind of think about something and making changes in your life. There's another thing to slow your mind down and get to a much subtler state of mind and really make a determination to practice patience with my son who struggles with homework, and to really see him as suffering and to really get it in there at a subtler state. To make lasting changes. So in our tradition, basically, the type of meditation that we practice, that I practice, and that I love, one of the things I love about it is that we're trying to make it very practical and effective and very modern, like basically taking these ancient fantastic teachings and philosophies and the Kadampa way is just sort of bringing them into everyday life for busy people with busy minds and making changes.
And how does that work? I mean, okay, so how does the meditation work? Talk me through a meditation.
I know what we should do. I should guide a meditation on the air here and have everybody fall, zone out and get in a car accident or something. It's basically. So I don't know how technical to get it right now, but there's five stages of our type of meditation. But essentially, you want to pacify the mind a little bit in our tradition. So we maybe do a little breathing meditation. We'll stop. We'll get our thoughts. We'll draw our thoughts inward. We'll let go of all of our to-do lists and all of the things that we've got to do.
You know what? Wait a minute.
Okay, I've already lost you. We just started talking this through, and you're already out. Like, forget it. I'm out.
No, I'm in. I'm totally in.
No, I'm just teasing.
Okay, so I have a confession to make.
Okay.
The past couple weeks, I've been trying to meditate, and I even have this book, How to Meditate, and from like 1972 or something.
Right.
And one of the first things he talks about is the meditation, where you count to 4 over and over and over again, and all you're doing is just counting to 4 in and out while you're breathing, and you're not thinking of anything else. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean that lasts about
seconds, less.
3 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, it could be less.
Even.
Sure, it could be less than that. That's like try. My big advice is try, especially. If you're new to meditation, try not to judge yourself or to sort of be outside looking at how you're doing. Just know that you're really making lasting impact. You're making imprints in your mind that will lead to real happiness in the future. So try not to judge. Just accept where you are and be easy on yourself and know that this is a long process. I couldn't sit with my mind for a millisecond. It was literally like I have compassion for that old version of myself because it was painful for me to try to look inward and try to calm my mind. It was like it's a madhouse. And from one perspective, it can still be a madhouse. Yeah. But I'm training. But yeah, so essentially, we're going to get distracted at first, for sure.
Okay. All right.
And if you're listening, I think it's important before we kind of go through the meditation. Like, what's the point? Well, really, what's the point?
Like,
why not? Why not?
Break, yeah.
My wife took some class. We have a break coming up?
Like 2 or 3 minutes.
Am I talking too much?
No.
For a guy who meditates?
You're all I got. You better keep talking.
Okay, all right, good. So let's just talk about, like, why do we want to create a little space in our mind? Why do we not want to multitask to such an extreme that we can't even fall asleep at night? Why are our minds going basically all the time and relying upon external people and situations and things going on out there to make us feel happy? Why do we want to work on our internal? Because if we create a little space, a little clarity, a little bit more love, a little bit more patience, a little bit more humility in our mind by training in these ways through meditation, basically we'll be happier people now and in the future, and we'll have a more beneficial impact on those around us. We'll be more likely to relate to somebody in a happy, in a loving way, and less in an agitated way. Our experience of the world will improve, for sure, without a doubt. I'm living proof. I'm the guy that you would have said, I can't meditate. It's not possible. And now I'm,
And this is all going to happen simply by sitting still.
No. It's not all going to happen.
Or being still. Being still? Is that a better way of putting it?
Well, not even necessarily. Meditation can be a very proactive mental activity. You can really keep your mind. I see this guy, waving his hand. I know we got a minute, but there's aspects of it. We definitely try to slow down the mind and learn to kind of focus our attention on certain things to create some space in the mind. But then in doing so, once we have a little bit of a pacified, clear mind, then we can start trying to train in certain ways that can lead to future happiness. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to go through these steps. We got to one.
Yeah, I don't even think we got to one.
I know. I cut that off pretty quick.
Yeah,
We've got 4.5 more to go. Don't go anywhere. I'm sitting here with Cameron Mathison, and we are talking about meditation because apparently, and I do believe this, and I want this for myself and for everybody, to make that space in my mind and to rein it all in, stay connected, stay focused, and be at peace and find that happiness, don't we all? You're listening to LancerRadio.org. This is Sweet Life. I am Brooke Peterson. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to Sweet Life. My name is Brooke Peterson. Thank you for joining us. Before our break, we are talking about meditation and how it all works and how it can help each and every single one of us in our normal daily lives. I'm sitting here with Cameron Mathison, who is joining us from the Kadampa Meditation Center here in Los Angeles. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so.
I love talking about meditation. This is fantastic.
Oh, good. Well, keep going because we have, okay. I know one of the things for, what we want to talk about is the different stages of meditation, how it works. And after that, I would like to talk about, how each of us can do this, practicing it every day in our daily life at the office, before a presentation or just in this slower, calmer moments of a day, perhaps. What do you think about that?
That's great. Absolutely. I mean, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. I meditate while I'm driving, clearly with my eyes open. But right. I can do like a certain breathing meditation if I'm feeling a little agitated, a little stressed, a little overwhelmed. I can do one of the simple breathing meditations to absolutely make a difference in my mind. And obviously, nothing's changed externally, right? So the situation that I could be stressed or feeling overwhelmed about is the same. Mm-hmm. All I'm doing is trying to change my mind with respect to the situation, creating a little space and a little clarity. And in many ways, meditation helps us to broaden our perspective. We tend to really focus in and get really tight and narrow and think and only dwell on one aspect of a situation or exaggerate or even make stuff up about it. Mm-hmm. But through creating space and clarity around something like that, you can just kind of zoom out and look at the big picture. It's an amazing effect on the mind. So that's just one of the aspects. But yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how I got on that, but
yeah, well, that's okay. So. We had started with the step 1.
Yes.
Which I interrupted.
You know what? Instead of going through all that, I started thinking maybe it's just kind of too much. There's a preparatory phase where you try to calm the mind, through a breathing practice or other ways just to create a little space and calm down the busyness, the general busyness of your mind. And then in our tradition, we basically kind of go to two things, a contemplation and a placement meditation. So you were sort of saying, is meditation all about being still or just stopping or clearing the mind, wiping the blackboard? People say, I can't do it. And I say to them, for a large part, either can I. That's a really difficult thing to do. Mm-hmm. So if your association with meditation is zoning out and just kind of clearing the mind and flaking out on it like that, that's so not what meditation is. Meditation is by definition a virtuous activity that leads to happiness. It's a change. It's a shift of the mind from an agitated state to a peaceful state. Okay. So one of your questions that you had brought up is, how do you know if it's working? Well, if it's working if you feel happier, if you feel more peaceful. If you're dwelling on a negativity in your mind, in a sense, meditating on something that you're kind of like, getting angry about, then it's not a real meditation. You're just kind of basically being mindful of somebody's perceived faults or something like that,
Stirring the pot.
Yeah. But essentially in our tradition, we have a contemplation stage, which is where we mentally go over certain lines of reasoning or philosophy. We talked about sort of in our tradition, of course, it comes from teachings from Buddha and Buddhist philosophy that many, many, many people of religious backgrounds can relate to. It's many, many different types of virtue and philosophy and reasoning that I think is very international and relatable. Mm-hmm. So we do that contemplative state, that section, going over certain steps. For instance, one would be if we're trying to feel closer to others and more loving in general, we can recognize that every living being has the same basic wish to be happy and to be free from suffering. Mm-hmm. So that's an example of a contemplation. Okay. So just remember, this person that's angry and it's causing me trouble at work, they're just like me. They want to be happy. They want to be free from suffering. So that's the contemplation. So you're thinking about this in meditation. You're thinking about it over and over again. You make it really specific with your life. And then when you land on a certain feeling or a determination, depending on what the meditation is, in this case, it would be a determination to cherish others, to recognize that they're just like me in this way. We're exactly the same, and so I'll cherish them as much as I cherish myself. It's called equalizing self with other.
Okay.
And so you really logically go through the contemplation. You arrive at a determination or a nice feeling in your heart, and then you try to place. It's called placement meditation. You try to remain there for a little while and stay on it as long as you can, just holding it in your mind, and then you get distracted. Mm-hmm. You go back to the contemplation. Oh yeah, all right, that's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to go over my shopping list. I'm trying to remember when I go to work today, that person at work or my child or my mother or my whoever is really difficult. I remember. They're just like me. They want to be happy. Every living being has the same basic wish. They want to be happy. They want to be free from suffering. Contemplate. It brings up a warm feeling in your heart. You want to cherish them like you cherish yourself because we're the same. We're exactly the same in that way. Forget about all externals. And you hold that placement meditation. You go back and forth between placement and contemplation.
And for how long?
As long as you have. It can be a minute. It can be 10 minutes. Whatever it is, you'll find a shift in the mind. I mean, here's the thing, is the more experience you have of it, the more you'll want to do it.
Mm-hmm. How long did that take for you?
It took a long time, to be completely honest, and I'm a bit of a rare case. My mind was really, really busy. It was a busy place in there, in that mind to mind. I was probably several months, I'd say close to a year, before I really started to want to meditate.
So what kept you doing it?
The little blips of recognition that it worked. The philosophy aspects, like it made sense on the surface to me. Like in other words, we're talking about things. So if these philosophies and these things make sense to you, then you're like, yeah, I want to try that. I want to try and get it deeper in my mind so I really believe it and I think about it all the time. That's where meditation comes in. So it becomes less of just a kind of a surface level insight and more of a deep realization in your heart, and you live by that. And in doing so, it protects your mind from agitation all day long. Mm-hmm. And your happiness it's a much more stable type of happiness, less dependent upon external situations and people behaving in the way that we all want them to behave.
Now, when you are going through your day and you feel agitated in some way or something just isn't working and everything's going wrong, and how do you handle it? What do you do?
Well, and with respect to people listening, I'm obviously some things are easier to work with than others, and eventually the highly realized people can work with anything, any problem they can deal with. But, for us that are just kind of learning and we're kind of getting into it, so you start with things that are manageable for you. So if you're having a really tough day, I would say just take some time to step away, do a breathing meditation, zoom out from the perspective. Like I say breathing meditation, you may not know what that is. It's sort of hard to talk about in a radio.
Is that the counting the breaths?
You can do counting. We do different types of breathing meditation where you maybe just focus on the sensation of your breath on the end of your nose, because what that is in a sense doing is you're really honing your concentration in on one thing. So you're kind of letting all these sort of busy externals go instead of trying to clear the backboard. You're kind of like little sharpening your concentration in.
Focus.
And then when you come out, you just have a much more clear and spacious mind in order to deal with the problem with possibilities, right? So if we're tight and we're angry and we're fixed and we're, as far as a situation on how to deal with something, once we meditate, we can really zoom out, and it opens our mind up to many different possibilities to be able to deal with the same kind of situation.
Yeah. Now, again, the time just flies. But so for something practical for a person at an office, they have a big meeting or a meeting with the boss, and they're feeling all kinds of tightness and stress. What do you suggest? They have, 2 minutes.
Yeah, there's many different times. 2 minutes, I would just go straight with the breathing meditation. I would go, there's many different types of breathing meditation. There's the one where I talked about where you can just focus on the sensation of the breath. You can just become aware of your breath in and out and trying to kind of. And it's not an escape. Like people misunderstand, well, why would I want to do that if I'm preparing for a meeting? You're actually preparing your mind so that you can be better in the meeting. You're creating a little less nerves, a little less stress, a little less anxiety about the meeting so you can be more yourself, be more genuine, be more mindful, be more present. In many cases, it seems like a selfish thing to do, to meditate. But in reality, it's not selfish, because you're creating a space in your mind that's a far greater benefit to those around you.
Fantastic. Thank you. I just can't believe how fast this went by. Oh, I'd like to thank my two exceptional guests today, Betsy Chassie and Cameron Mathison, for joining us. Thank you to my board op, Jamie, even though he cut me off earlier. You little bugger. And for my associate producer, Brian Diaz. You're listening to Lancer Radio, streaming from Pasadena City College. This is Brooke Peterson on Sweet Life, bringing to you whatever helps and whatever works to make your life sweet. Meet back here next week. Up next is Dot Can.